Hello, everyone. That's JB. That's also Beth, and I am Freddie. And we are the Live Prosperous team. And we're so excited to have you join us today. And Live Prosperous is simply the place where your prosperity starts on the inside. We're so excited to be hosting this conversation about mastering the calm and a simple conversation about communication and respect in these chaotic times. I'm so excited to have my co-hosts here today, JB and Beth. And so first, I want to sort of throw it to JB. Why don't you say hello to our guests that are watching in both live and they'll be watching virtually. Say hello to our people.
Hello, everyone. I'm JB and glad to be here with my main man, Freddie and Beth. And Freddie, Steelers are 3-0.
So you're saying there's a chance. And Beth, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Beth Shaha here. Excited to be with you tonight and talking about mastering the chaos that goes on in this world.
Well, today we are going to be very intentional with our time and with your time. But as we know, today we live in a very fast paced and many times a stressful world. And so today we wanted to make sure that we had a chance to be able to talk about some of those crucial skills for us to be able to calm the chaos that's going on inside of us, as well as to help calm the chaos that we see in others. And this is really a supplement to the program that we've been working on and have just launched over the past couple years called Live Prosperous, where these courses have been designed with you in mind to help you have the specific tools, not only to be present with yourself, to be able to understand what's really going on, but most importantly, to equip you with the tools to love and lead in your home, in your community, at work, and to be able to really be ultimately become a lifeguard that can be a change agent to the people around you. So today we're going to focus on a few simple things. Beth is going to give us a grounding exercise that I'm really, really excited about. Beth is an absolutely amazing life coach, and I can't wait to get some of those extra tools in our toolbox. JB is going to be sharing some really important tools about the power of listening, and he's going to really help us understand from his military background how important listening really is. Beth is also going to share some more reflective listening exercises that will help you in your journey today. And then I'm going to help you with some specific tools on how to calm the chaos in other people. We always see situations where people tend to have a lot of drama going on in their life. How can I actually help the person, whether or not it's at home or at work, when I see them in a chaotic situation? So, Beth, why don't you start us off with a grounding exercise to help us be more present with ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely, Freddie. Thank you so much. We're all joining here together, and every single one of us has had a full day. Every one of us, right? Many things were accomplished, conversations happened. I know JB's in Mexico City doing crazy things. Duties and tasks were fulfilled. There's always more stuff that's coming our way. So for now, in this moment, I'm going to encourage you all to pause. So I'm just going to ask, let's put a parenthesis out here to our left to kind of create a temporary barrier between what has happened thus far, this day, this week, and allow space for the here and now by placing another parenthesis to the right, except I'm not mirrored, so that went backwards. You know what I mean? Put those parentheses around our time together. We know that there is more to come after our time tonight and tomorrow, but for now, it's our job to be here right now. So to help us being present and grounded with one another, I want to lead you through a moment of grounding. So if you're comfortable, I'm going to ask you to shut your eyes. If not, you can keep a low gaze. You're welcome to turn off your video for this part if it makes you more comfortable. But what I like to do is keep my feet flat on the ground, my hands in my lap, just getting comfy. Roll your shoulders back and just focusing on your breath. So taking 3 deep breaths, noticing that our exhale should be a little longer than our inhale. Let's do that now. Inhale. And an exhale. 2 more. Inhale. And exhale, imagining yourself letting all the air out, almost like you're a balloon on the ground in front of you, deflated. And inhale, filling every ounce of air capacity you can put into your body, feeling just full as can be, and a big exhale. Find yourself in a normal breath with your eyes closed or a low gaze, and we're just going to move forward. So I once read that sitting in purposeful silence is like food for your heart and your soul. It's as if your mind spends most of its time hanging out in loud, chaotic environments where everyone's singing and yelling and at the top of their lungs. There's so much activity going on, and there's so much crazy and so much is accomplished. But meditation, simple mindfulness, shuts it all down. It rolls everyone out the door, turns off all of our to-do lists, and allows our higher self to be seen and listened to. So sitting in a silence is a gift, and it takes practice. So practice again. Take another deep breath. And on this exhale, I want to ask you to call to mind your favorite taste. Maybe it's a favorite beverage or food, something you really love the taste of. Suspend your disbelief and imagine that taste right now in your mouth. Once you've done that, call to mind your favorite smell. Maybe it's a flower, perfume, fresh baked goods. Imagine smelling that right now. Next, let's think about your favorite thing to feel or touch. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun, nice blanket. Feel that. Now let's think of your favorite sound. This could be your favorite band, maybe bird, someone's voice. Just imagine for a moment that you can actually hear your favorite sound. Then finally, call to mind your favorite sight. It could be a place, a person, just see it. Imagine it in your mind's eye. And now we're going to drench. Let's put them all together and experience them all at once. For this moment, I want you to taste your favorite taste, smell your favorite smell, touch and feel your favorite touch, hear your favorite sound, and see your favorite sight. All at once. Put yourself in that again. Taste your favorite taste, smell your favorite smell, touch your favorite touch, hear your favorite sound, see your favorite sight. And feel that drenching over you. Sweet moment. And when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open, take another deep breath, and come back to me. Doesn't that feel good? So this is something that you can do every day and just see what you notice. Sometimes people do it just because it feels good, which is totally cool. And sometimes people do it because it's a way to quiet their mind. So experiment with it and see how it makes a difference for you. So we're here, we're ready, we are with you, JB. I'm honored to introduce my friend JB. He's a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major and author and business owner, and he is going to share with us the power of listening. JB?
Thanks, Beth. I really appreciate that exercise as well, too. I'm going to do a little more to bring my calmness down. So that's great. Welcome, everyone, once again. So when we talk about listening, listening is such an important tool in our life. And many of us, including me, haven't done it well. So you have to practice to become a good listener. Actually, you should practice to become a great listener. So I'm going to give you some things that help you. And so you understand where that comes from. The first thing is you have to understand that listening is a learned trait. Of course, maybe when you were a kid, if you played sports and your parents said this or your coach said this, you had to, listen and respond. But as you start growing older and, having your own business or your own family or your own children or whatever else you're doing, you have to become what they say, an active listener. And that makes for effective communication. Listen to understand, not always to respond. What happens is when somebody's talking to us, we're already cycling in our mind our answer. Sometimes you don't have to give an answer. Just listen. Also, you want to manage your body language. Ensure you're maintaining eye contact. How many of you have been out talking to somebody and you picked up the old phone and you're like, uh-huh, right? And there's also people that make eye contact, but they're still not listening to the person. I have a friend that actually self-admitted that. He's like, yeah, I'm listening to people, I'm looking them in their eye, but I'm thinking about things 5 minutes from now. So you really have to manage that. Make sure you have eye contact, face whoever you're talking to, and use those nonverbal cues so people know that you're listening. You can move your eyes when they're saying something, like almost like, wow, okay. And that brings out what you're trying to do. So those nonverbal cues are important. Here's another very important thing when you're listening. Listen without judging or jumping to conclusions. Right? We all want to say, well, I wouldn't have done that. That was really dumb what you did. Just don't put a judge in it. You're not the judge, you're not the jury, you're not the executioner. You are just there to listen. Let the other person complete their thought without jumping in. You know who's terrible at that? Me. I'm working at it. I sometimes with my family, I find myself finishing their sentences because I'm so excited about what they're saying. I want to jump into it. You have patient. Let them talk. Don't interrupt. Stay focused and keep your attention undivided. That's how you become a great listener. Sometimes when I'm getting ready to talk to somebody and things are going on, I use this tool: stop, look, listen, smell. Just take a minute. Just like Beth was teaching you in her exercise, take a minute. Just stop, look, listen, smell. When you do that, when you learn to listen, you quiet both your mind and you quiet your spirit. A quiet mind needs a quiet spirit, and a quiet spirit needs a quiet mind. And that comes through being an effective listener. Learn to listen. Learn to listen, to understand, without prejudging, without giving your opinion. And sometimes that's all people want to do. They just want to tell you what they want. And so you need to take it in and listen. And then if they ask you for some feedback and advice, give it to them. And if it's not the right time, maybe wait. The other thing is, when you learn to listen, you can understand where people are coming from. I'm a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Freddie, obviously the Indianapolis Colts, Tennessee Titans, and we go back and forth a little bit, but we listen to our other teams and have a little friendly banter. That's important because that's the power of listening. Thank you. Beth, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, JB. It's interesting in this time that we're in right now, listening is important. And it's really important that we're present with one another, that we have that acknowledgement of one another, that we are giving each other that eye contact and the time. Isn't that just a beautiful thing when we can give that to others? So thank you, JB, for that. I do think that sometimes it can be a challenge when we're feeling a little of that internal chaos inside of us. And when I think about those of you that are here listening, or you're listening later, you're interested in mastering that calm. So a lot of it is with listening outside and externally, as JB was talking about, and part of it too is figuring out what's in here. And you might be juggling too many tasks at once. Your time and energy might be spread thin. If you're like me, you're constantly shifting between very detailed work and big picture thinking throughout the day. You're doing different projects. Sometimes you might feel you're in a situation where you're not in alignment with your values or your goals or your purpose, or maybe just your to-do list is overflowing and you can't prioritize. So there's a lot of things that can make our mind and our internal landscape feel very chaotic. So I want to share something that's really important, especially when life feels this way. And that is the power of listening to yourself and grounding yourself. These practical tips help to calm this internal chaos. So the first one is to simply listen to your inner voice. It's a simple thing, but it's tricky because you have to be willing to turn off the other noise to really listen. And when we calm our inner chaos by listening to ourselves, we're going beneath the surface. So an example would be, imagine you're working on a big project or with a tight deadline, and you start to notice your shoulders are tensing up, your mind is racing, you can't really focus, you're feeling overwhelmed. And instead of pushing through, you pause for a moment and say, what am I feeling right now? Okay, I can sense that this is all happening. You realize that underneath the stress, there might actually be something bigger, and it might be a fear that you may not perform well, or that you're not going to measure up. And when we give this fear a chance to breathe and we acknowledge it, we're able to move forward a little more with clarity. So often why this matters is when, life is moving so fast and we don't take the moment to acknowledge how we're feeling, we can just stay in that chaos. But when we're recognizing the early signs of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, when that happens, we can avoid being controlled by them. So next time when you're feeling chaos inside, right? Like you're just feeling that whirl, take 60 seconds and say, what am I feeling right now? Naming your emotions, it brings awareness, and awareness is a first step to starting to manage that. And if you want to take it deeper, which is what I try to do, is I say, okay, not only what am I feeling, what actually are the sensations in my body? And what are those sensations trying to tell me? Our body is so much wiser than our mind, and our body knows. And you'll notice that it will give us signs that tell us that we need to pause and take care of our inner state of being. When we ignore these signals from our heart, our gut, our soul, like JB said, will find a way to get our attention. Trust me on that. And when it does, it's usually more intense and louder and harder to miss than the quiet nudges you receive all the time. So do yourself a favor and notice when your soul is trying to tell you, and don't be afraid to hear it. So practicing this noticing is really key to hearing from within. So that's number one. Your second tip for calming this chaos within is what we just did, grounding yourself in the present moment. Like JB talked about, the stop, look, listen, smell. If it's the sense stretching, when we do this, we're able to ground our body, feel the sensations, and be in that present moment. And how is this useful in our daily interactions? Well, you could be in a conversation with a coworker or a partner, and you could kind of feel that same thing. So before you walk in, take that deep breath. Use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. Look around, identify 5 things you see. Maybe the color of the walls, a window, maybe a chair, 4 things that you hear, 3 things you can feel, etc. And while doing this, when you start to feel the desk in front of you and hear the air conditioning hum, all of a sudden, by the time you finish doing this, your mind just feels calmer. And then you're ready to engage with more focus. So chaos pulls us out of the present moment and gets us in a whirlwind, but grounding techniques reconnect us with our physical senses, and that calms our nervous system. It slows down our mind and our body. So use them. Use these grounding exercises like deep breathing, box breathing, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, any of these. Sometimes, you guys, I'll even go into my closet and I'll put my hand on my heart. And if I'm really chaotic, I'll say, I see you. I see your suffering. I'm here for you. And I'm just reminding myself that I am my own best caregiver. And taking a minute to connect to myself is how I ground. And what I love about all these things that I just shared with you is that they're in your back pocket. They're available to you at any moment. I was talking earlier with a colleague, Jen Sherman, and she was talking about somebody that just wanted a tool. And it's fascinating because there's lots of things that we've learned with self-awareness, and there's a lot of things at our fingertips now. But you may not always have time to go walk or journal or meditate or coach or therapy or all this, but present moment grounding techniques can act as a in the moment meditation when you're dealing with intense emotions. And remember, these bring you back home to yourself. So that leaves us with just one more, and that is a little bit what JB talked about earlier, is trying to respond instead of react. Once we have calmed our internal landscape, we're able to respond in a way that we're more emotionally in charge of ourselves. When you think about the last time you were angry or maybe taken for granted, when we feel these things, it's our first instinct to react angrily, letting our emotion lead. But when we regulate these emotions, pause and take a deep breath, you might still notice frustration maybe or anger rising, but instead of letting control yourself, you ask another question. How do I want to show up in this moment? and you realize that maybe reacting with anger might not help. So you choose to kind of respond calmly with clarity and responding with intentional action. So the next time something triggers you, take that breath, take a moment to identify what you're feeling, notice your sensations, but try noticing it without judgment. Just get curious and listen. And we acknowledge these emotions. It gives us power to respond calmly and dictate our actions. So remember this really important question: how do I want to show up? So when we're trying to manage this internal calm and listen to others and also manage the outside world, how do I want to show up? That question stops me in my tracks a lot, and it gives me a power to respond from a place of strength and thoughtfulness and calm. So I'm just going to encourage you to keep doing these basic little things, and that helps us to navigate the storm. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Freddie, and Freddie's going to share a little bit more about managing the chaos around you. I do want to pause and share that we are going to take some Q&A throughout and at the end. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the question and answer, and we'll try to get to those at the end. So thanks. Freddie, go ahead.
Well, again, thank you both, JB and Beth. Those are some amazing, amazing tips. And again, when you're talking about chaos and the things that we have to deal with and navigate internally, those tools are so important. And as you're sharing, so now I'm going to talk about managing and helping the chaos in others. As we realize, as we go through life, there's always something that people are going through, and many times our inability to help them creates even more chaos for ourselves. I'm reminded of this quote from Napoleon Bonaparte. He said, "The battlefield is a scene of constant chaos. The winner will be the one who controls that chaos, both his own and the enemy's." So what Beth started with in giving us some tools about how do I become more present and understanding with what's going on in me and why, and being able to navigate that space. But now let's talk about, well, what happens when I see chaos going on in someone else? What happens when I realize that someone else is in need of support, and how can I help them? Well, first I want to sort of tell a quick story. I love, if you haven't read this book, it's an amazing book by Viktor Frankl, talking about his book title called Man's Search for Meaning. And he talks about this illustration about the difference between a egg, a carrot, or a coffee bean. And I remember the first time I heard this, I'm like, what do you mean, an egg? Are you an egg? Are you a carrot? Or are you a coffee bean? How could you be any of those things? But when you think about when those three different things are in pressure, what happens to them and how do they affect other things? So what happens when a carrot is under pressure when it's cooked, right? Something that was once hard when it's raw, but now when it's under pressure and it's cooked, it immediately becomes soft and mushy. And for some of us, that's what happens. We become soft and mushy when we see pressure around us rather than engaging and supporting. We don't know how to respond. And so we just sort of deflect and just sort of take it and just, it's not necessarily the most productive environment. Or we could be like an egg. And what happens when an egg is in pressure or when it's cooked? It becomes hard. And for some of us, when we see people in pressure or when are in a situation like that, what we end up doing is we become so rigid and so hard rather than helping the person. We're really blowing through the person because we're not being sensitive to where they are and what they actually need. Or you could be like a coffee bean. Well, what happens when a coffee bean is under pressure? Well, a coffee bean, when it's under pressure, doesn't just become hard or soft. It actually makes something that it didn't exist before. Actually, now we drink it almost every day. Some of us are addicted to it. It's called coffee because that pressure now made something that wasn't there before. And so my encouragement to you is, as we talk about chaos, as we talk about engaging and trying to help others through what they may be challenged with at the time, think of yourself as the coffee bean, that as you insert yourself into the situation, you're going to be able to help give color and clarity and flavor that wasn't there before, but because you engage with a heart of support, you can bring calm to chaos. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to give you just a couple thoughts that I think will be very relevant and applicable for no matter where you are. This is whether or not it's your marriage and relationship or if it's at work, some practical things that I think will help you with what you're going through. First of all, remember the purpose of listening. Point number one, remember the purpose for listening. I love the Bible passage where it says, be slow to speak, but quick to listen. So the reason why I have two ears is because I'm supposed to be listening twice as much as what I say. And so by listening, and I'm listening, like JB said earlier, I'm listening with the intent to understand. Now, later on, I'm going to give you a clue on what to understand, because many times we can listen and we can listen for the wrong things. And if I listen for the wrong things, I will still get the wrong results. But I'm going to give you a clue on what specifically to listen for that will allow you to connect with that person and allow them to feel heard and understood and calm their chaos. So first, remember the purpose of listening. Second, listen for what matters most. Now, many times, if you're like me, when I have a conversation, I'm very linear and logical. You said A and B, and I repeated A and B. If I said, hey, do you have a problem? You said, no. Okay, I moved on because you said there wasn't a problem. No matter what the situation is, we sometimes can become so linear and logical that we miss the depth of who we are talking to. We are deeply emotional and complex people. And if we just go off of the surface emotion, the surface experience, the surface explanation, the surface conversation, we're never really going to get the depth of understanding and bonding with each other. So realize, just like there's a depth to your story, and there's a depth to what you allow people to know about yourself, or not, what part of the story you expose based upon your trust, based upon your familiarity, based upon whether or not you can share it and not be judged. Realize that that is now your role in this space. Your role in this space is to create an atmosphere of listening without judgment. My love for you, my respect for you, my admiration for you, my desire to work with you is not going to change based upon what you tell me. In fact, I'm listening with curiosity because I want to know even more about you, and not just you, but I really want to listen for three specific things: your values, your feelings, and then your words. Now, this is actually a fun exercise that I've done at men's events and even with NFL teams, where you get guys and because most men, and I'll just speak for myself, most men have not mastered the art of communicating openly. You know, we tend to give these one-word answers. How you doing? Good. What's going on? Nothing. Like that. Hey, I talked to you. So learning to listen for more than just words is a skill. Like JP said before, active listening is a skill that can be developed. It's a muscle that can be learned and strengthened with time. So if you listen for these other two things, not just words, but for feelings and values, people will resonate with you and understand that you're listening for the purpose of connecting with them. The easiest thing to start with is listening for values. Not values, I'm sorry. Listening for feelings, because you can sort of see that. How you doing? Fine. Well, you don't sound fine. It sounds like you're a little agitated. So can you tell me more about why you feel the way you do? And leaning in with those open-ended reflective questions that allows them to know that you care, even though they didn't say they needed to talk about that. Their feelings of what they're expressing or the tone in which they're talking is giving you clues to a deeper conversation. The other clue is their body language. When I come home and I look at my wife, or I go to work and I see a coworker or I see someone and I can tell their body language is tense, even though they haven't said a word to me, that is a green light for me to check in. Hey, what's going on? You okay? Oh, sometimes you'd be amazed with how many people are just waiting for somebody to ask them, are you okay? Simply looking for body language, listening for tone, or listening for feelings becomes a door opener to a deeper conversation that can help that person calm the chaos that they may be going through. So again, I hope that that is something that's relevant. Remember, you're the coffee bean in the situation. You are using these tools to make something that is refreshing and flavorful and something that will benefit that other person. And here's the real secret sauce and really the thing that's really empowering. If you don't do that, how will they get help? If you don't ask the question, who will? And that person is around you, and you have that opportunity to notice that for a reason. And so just steward that relationship. Realize that we all need someone to check in on us at some point in time. And I hope that those tools will help you navigate that. And so, Beth, do you see any questions or anything, any feedback from that, JB, as well? I try to keep that to the point, but any feedback, and then we can transition to Q&A.
I love it. I love it. And Freddie, I just wanted to caveat on one thing. 5 minutes of active listening for that person can be like an hour, right? And so people think, oh, I got to active listen. I don't really, you checked in with that friend. I mean, 5 minutes of that listening, and that person's like, man, he listened to me for 2 hours. No, you only listened 5 minutes, but you did it actively. And so that's the importance of becoming an active listener.
And a secret that I try to help leaders with, leaders in the home and in community. You said 5 minutes. I give guys a 2-minute warning. I call it a 2 minutes before you shut down mentally for the day when you go home, or when you go into the office or go back in after lunch. Engage and intentionally check and assess. Think about when you go to the pool and you have lifeguards there, really good lifeguards, they have a system where they're periodically doing this check, and they're looking at their zone and they're making sure there's nobody like floating that shouldn't be floating, right? There's an intentionality around checking in, and you do it for a time. And once everything's good, you relax. And so again, that is something that we all can do. And it's just about being intentional with being present with other people as well. Beth?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think when I think about being a lifeguard, I think about this phrase I picked up along the way, live it to give it. Right. So when I'm talking about looking at your internal landscape and being willing to see things and get curious about it, the more that I have gone into the depths, the more I felt like, wow, I got work to do before I can do this. And that's not always the case. When you do the work and you start to see glimmers of hope and shine, and you start to feel clarity and energy, all of a sudden that's what people want. That's what people want to be a part of. So when you live it, when you do this work and you become more self-aware and curious and give yourself the compassion you need to grow, other people notice and they want a piece of that. And that's also your ticket to say, hey, I'm living this and I'm going to give it. And that is just some mantra that I've always had. All right, we do have a couple questions here. Just for anybody, one says, do you have any tools to help engage teenagers in conversation and get them to actively listen in this world of distraction?
Wow. So
We all have teenagers, so we're all
I
asking
know.
the question.
So my wife and I, we have 5, they're not even children anymore. We are at 24 who just got married, 23, 19, 18, and 16. honestly, this has been one of those things that we've tried to just practice at home of being present with each other, having periodic times where we eat together as a family, and having those check-ins with each other. Because now we have four boys and our youngest is a daughter. So our daughter is a lot more communicative than our boys, but it's amazing as they've gotten older by having the practice of being available and willing to listen, how they are choosing to ask more questions and choosing to want to engage at deeper levels based upon where they are now in life. We have three that are, well, two in college, one just graduated, and now we're getting those random calls and deep conversations because we created this culture of them understanding that we're here for you. And so those are some of the things that for us, we just try to create that environment to let them know that there's nothing that they could do that could separate them from our love for them, and to know that that unconditional love and support will always be there. And then also trying to model that as much as we can with between my wife and I as well.
Mhm. Yes, definitely. I think I was talking with Patrice Webb today, who's one of our consultants, and she was talking about, if you want to really stay youthful and you're looking for that, the secret of youth, you got to spend time with younger people and let yourself be wrong sometimes. And I loved what she said. And I think that that's so true. Freddie's a coach. I coach field hockey. I have two teenage girls and a son in college too. And so, I do think it's having that present conversation, and like Freddie, it's around the table, but it's also asking powerful questions, getting them to think for themselves, because when they're kind of like navigating that for this and what's going on inside, they're able to see the world in a way that makes them a little more curious rather than judgmental because they're just living in the chaos. So I try as best we can to slow down and ask a lot of questions too. So, all right. Questions are coming up and they're going away, so I'm not quite
No,
sure
I
what.
so I got one for you
Okay, go
here.
ahead.
Oh, I've been
What's your
answering them,
what's your
Beth.
yeah, what's your
I've been
go-to
typing answers.
technique for calming your mind during high pressure situations or conversations? I'm gonna put Beth on the hot seat, and then I've got a
My
follow-up.
go-to technique. Well, let me tell you, I'm just going to tell you, I went to do an MRI and it was on my shoulder. And I was like, I got this. I'm calm, girl. I can do this. And I was thinking, I never worry about, little spaces. I'm telling you what, even though they put Kenny Chesney in my ears, and once they started putting me back and they gave me that little button, I started to freak the crap out. I was like, I don't know about this. And I remember thinking, I'm pretty stubborn too, and I'm competitive. So I'm not gonna not get this done because I made the appointment and I wanted to be there. So it's a high pressure situation that I was in, and I was sitting there and I'm like, start breathing, figure it out. You got it, you got this. And so I did box breathing literally in there, and I was in there for 42 minutes solid. And I just did box breathing. And if I had not done that, I would never have been able to do that. And I also find myself before presentation or when I'm going into big thing, breathing. It really does. It's such a simple thing, but when you really are intentional about breath and you feel it moving in and out, and you're thoughtful that your exhale is further than your inhale, that simple thing. I use it at least every day, where I'll just take a good deep breath, even if it's just a sigh. Now I've gotten to the point where my husband's like, what was that sigh about? You don't get to know everything. I'm practicing my self-care over here. Yeah, so that's me.
Beth, I learned in the military and I still use it today. I do this three fist pump. So you squeeze your fist, you hold it for, count of 1,000, you let it go
Okay.
fingers wide.
Okay.
You do that 3 times, 2 and 3. The good thing about this is you can do it with your hand by your side. So if you're talking to somebody or if it's a deep conversation, you can just do that fist pump. No one's even seeing what you're doing. Right.
Yeah.
Even I remember doing it even before missions, before coming off a helicopter or anything else, or standing by a door ready to go in. I would just use my left hand and do this three fist pump, and it would automatically, it's a cue for calmness, right? It's again, another trained response, and people can use whatever they want for that, but some place that is that they're doing it purposefully to calm themselves. Because, you know, sometimes you don't want to be in front of people and be like,
Right.
okay, I'm calming myself down. Right. You have to do it. You have to do it. Yeah. Right. You have to do it a little bit more. You have to
Yeah.
do it a little bit more
Yeah.
covertly. And Freddie talked about it, is your posture. You know, you never want your head to start be coming down, because what happens is, you know, there's that vein running through your neck there, that carotid artery. And what happens when you bring your head down, you start putting pressure on that neck, and it makes you stress. So you always want to keep your head up, keep your posture right. And those are things that you can do even in a space in front of people, that can bring you some calmness.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I would breathe during NFL games in between plays. I would
Yeah.
use breathing techniques because it was the only way in a amped atmosphere, thousands of people, you know, you're trying to process and perform at a high level, highly stressed. I would breathe and it would calm me down. Now, I may only have 30 seconds in between plays, but I would use whatever time to try to be as proactive as possible for me to control my body and not have my body control me, for me to control what I do, not what's being done to control me. And so all those things I believe should be hopefully really, really good for you.
Yeah.
All right. Another question. What's the most impactful habit you've developed on your journey that you consistently apply in your relationships? Ooh, we get into relationships.
You know, one thing that I think is really helpful is remembering whose business you're in. When we're thinking about a relationship and we're thinking, oh, what would they think, or how are they going to feel, or what, you know, we start to tend to be in their business. And I believe there's your business, there's their business, and there's a higher powers business, right? We can't mess with the stuff that the higher powers got. That's their job. But what we can do is stay in our business. And when I think about relationships, even I'll even talk with my kids. They'll be talking about something, they'll be such in a whirlwind about something, and I'll just say, hey, whose business are you in? And then it's just a reset to say, all right, I should stay in my own business. How they respond, how they react, how they, relate to me with this is their business. And I don't know what it's going to be like, and I can't predict that. What I can do is know my business. And if I'm clean on my side of the street and I feel good about what I'm saying or doing or the choices I'm making, it's their business then on how they want to respond. And that's been really helpful for me.
I would say my wife and I celebrated 25 years of marriage in April of this year. And I would say one of the most important lessons or rules or habits we've developed is having a habit of what do I need to give rather than what do I want to get? What do I need to give rather than what I need to get? And that creates a relationship that's focused on a transformational relationship rather than a transactional relationship. If I'm looking at, oh, she did this, so I can do this, or she didn't do this, so I should do that. When you get there, tick for tack, where it's just transaction and what I feel you deserve, then that's when things can go left really quick. When it's focused on, no, I love you, and this is who you are to me. And because of who you are to me, I'm willing to do these things to help you, serve you, because I know you. That turns things into a whole different lane to where I'm not counting and keeping track of and doing all those things. And I realize that over time, you always reap what you sow. And so I'm sowing love. I'm sowing forgiveness. I'm sowing patience. Now, am I perfect at it? No. And my wife reminds me because she knows the stuff I tell people. And she says, wait a minute, you didn't listen to me for the 2 minutes. You didn't give me the 2 minute warning. But again, the accountability. I want that. I need that because none of us are, some days we're going to have off days. But that doesn't mean that she's still not on my team or the people around you really aren't on your team. And so that one is something that I
Yes,
love.
love that.
All right. Let's see. All right. I have morning and evening rituals to be present. Do you have a habit that we can practice to proactively prepare for when chaos hits us so that we are ready rather than reacting to the chaos and trying to remember what to do? Mm. What is a habit that we can practice to proactively prepare for when chaos hits us? I'm curious, JB. You're the military vet. What were some of the things that they tried to train you to do to be able to be ready for situations that
Yeah.
some are known, some are unknown?
Well, and I put it in the chat there too. For me, it's that, believe it or not, stop, look, listen, smell. Now, of course, you can't always do that. If a freight train's coming your way, you got to get out of the way. But prior to those events, right, you have to set your mind for victory. You have to set your mind for victory. I never left in Afghanistan. I never left the camp thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What if this happens? What if that? I just set my mind for victory. You set my mind for, and that's what you have to do when you leave the house, because things happen. You might get stuck in traffic even though you left early. The bus route might not be running correct today, but you have to set your mind for victory. And then if you do, then you can find those things and overcome it. The other thing is just don't overreact to things, right? There's no reason, to overreact. Times we do because we want it all to go perfect, because it has to go like this and like this and like this. It doesn't always happen that way. So you got to give yourself a little bit of flexibility in that. And so setting your mind for victory for me was that it. And before, I do a healthy ritual. My wife and I, we pray every morning together. We start our day like that. And then from there, our day starts on whatever else it needs to be. Walk the dog, get your coffee, get your lunch ready, all those things. So set your mind for victory instead of setting your mind for, oh my gosh, I have all these tasks I have to do today. Because what happens is that it just overwhelms your resolve. So sometimes you do need to take it, one step at a time. Freddie, to gain 10 yards, you got to gain one. And I think that's an important reminder for everybody.
And I would just add one thing to it. Continue to don't underestimate the value of what Beth started our conversation off with today, and being present with yourself and being able to have those calming exercises to calm the chaos inside you. Because if you are already starting your day in a stressed state and then stress comes, you're not going to have the bandwidth to really be responsive and handle it. So having the habit of prayer, meditation, getting up and taking a walk, being mindful of what's the first thing that you do or watch or listen. The first thing, you might need to ban social media or news or something. Anything that can help keep you in a more peaceful state of mind is going to help you when it comes to dealing with anything that could come up throughout the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freddie, I'm just going to add one more thing. Sorry, Beth. I'm going to add one more thing is I always try to show up 5 minutes early for everything. And I find that takes so much stress away and even if you're hustling from one thing to the next, if you show up 5 minutes early, then you can take a minute and do Beth's breathing exercises and reset yourself for that next event. So 5 minutes early to everything is a great technique.
Well, I am so excited that we've had this time, and able to answer your questions. This is again the very beginning of this work, of this program. Make sure that you continue to go to liveprosperous.com and make sure that the courses that you signed up for, finish them. There's some amazing reflective lessons. You're going to hear some more stories and tools from both Beth and JB to help you navigate where you are. Take those surveys. It's going to help equip you with tools to help you with whatever challenges that you're going through right now. I want to wrap with JB. Do you have something quick, just a parting thought for our guest today?
Yeah. My parting thought is patience is power. Patience is power.
Beth.
We threw a lot at you and all kinds of techniques, tips, practical things you can try. Try them. If it works for you, it works for you. What works for JB may not work for Freddie. What works for you, and it's for you. So design what self-care looks like. Design what it looks like to calm your inner landscape, and get curious. Have fun with it. Find what works for you and try it out, and just make that a daily habit.
And my parting thought is just remember the purpose of listening, and that peace begins with you. And I was just reminded of this image of a hurricane. You see, these things. I grew up in Miami. My family's down there, and many times, you get hurricanes that blow through, and you have this just massive storm. That's all this wind and all the stuff that's going on, and all the devastation that happens around it. But then, in the eye of the storm, it's perfect peace. No wind. The eye is not impacted by the stuff going on around it. So just because there is a storm, it doesn't mean that it has to be a storm for you. So before I said be a coffee bean, now I want you to be the eye. Be the eye of the storm. Be that calming presence that when people are going through things around you, that you can see the impact of what's going on. Realize that you can step into those places, because wherever the eye is, peace is. Wherever the eye covers, now it's not windy anymore, because the eye is there for a reason, just like you are. So I can't wait for our next session. We'll be look online. We'll be posting when our next live event will be. Of course, this is recorded as well. Share this with a friend. Make sure that there's something that was a tool or a takeaway that was helpful for you, that this person needs to hear that. Share this with them, and we can't wait to answer more of your questions and be there for you. Until next time, thank you again so much, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.